Ohio. Daugavpils, the city of Republican subordination in Latvia, the second largest and to value the city of the country after Riga. Distance to Riga. On the highway -232 km, by rail -218 km. The most southern of all cities of the Republic is located on the Daugava River. Western Dvina. Near border with Lithuania. 23 km on Highway A. And Belarus. 26 km on Highway P. The city is founded in 1275 as the fortress Loch Dinneberg. Originally I settled down in 19 km above on a watercourse of Dvina from a present location of the city. The largest city of a southeast part of Latvia. Cultural, education and industrial center of Latgale. Important railway junction. The administrative center of the Daugavpils region, which part isn't. The population of the city -82,000 inhabitants. 2020. Central Statistical Office. My data for 2021 in Daugavpils, the share of Russians as a part of the population was the highest among the cities of Latvia, -48.1%. The chairman of the Daugavpils City Council. Mayor. Andrei Alksnich. The climate in Daugavpils in comparison with other regions of Latvia is more continental. Air temperature in the summer rather above, and in the winter below, than in other regions of Latvia. In Daugavpils were recorded the highest. +36.4 C on August 4, 1943. And the lowest. 43.2 C on February 8, 1956. Temperatures in Latvia. The sun shines on average 1809 hours in a year. Old Dinneberg. Now Ventspils, Dinajenski Volist. Was founded by knight sword bearers on the bank of the river of Dvina in 19 km upstream from the present city. In 1275, master of the Livonian award Baron Ernst von Ratzeburg constructed the stone Dinneberg lock, which became the center of a commissariat. Soon after the basis of the new lock, the Lithuanian prince destroyed and besieged in several weeks. Several years later, the storm undertaken by Troyden's successor, the Prince Vietnam, was more successful, and the lock was for the first time destroyed. In 1313, the master of an award Gerhard von York built up Dinneberg again, and in 1347 the master Goswin von Herrick attached 4 more towers. In 1481, during the Russian-Livonian War, the lock was taken by troops of the Grand Duke Moscow Ivan III. In 1558 the Livonian War began. In 1559 Dinneberg was ceded by Lebanese to the king to the Polish and Grand Duke Lithuanian Sigismund II Augustus. Under the contract between Sigismund II and a Landmaster of the Teutonic Order in Livonia Gotthard Kettler signed in 1561, Dinneberg was a part of Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In 1569 the Duke Gotthard Kettler finally refused the lock in favor of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In July 1577 the lock was taken by troops of the Tsar Ivan the Terrible and completely destroyed. Then, according to Ivan the Terrible's instructions, fortress was newly built up in 19 km below on the Dvina current. already on the place of modern Daugavpils, in the mouth of the Shinitsa River opposite to the settlement of Ierasalimka. However, in 1582, according to the Jamspolski world, Dyneburg turned into structure of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Same year he acquired the rights of the city. The city was granted the Magdeburg right. During war between the King Sigismund and the Duke Karl Sedermanlandsky, and also at Gustav II Adolf, Swedes took Dyneburg for the Swedish throne twice, but every time returned him to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. As a result of the Kadansky Union in 1655, the city was occupied by Swedes. However, a year later, during the Russian-Swedish War of 1656-1658, Dyneburg was besieged and taken by army of the Russian Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich, who renamed the city into Boryslav. In some sources, Borisglebsk. In 1666, during the Russian-Polish War, near Boryslav, attack of Lithuanians was reflected. However, by results of Andrasovsky truce, the city turned into structure of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth again. As a result of the first section of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Dyneburg in 1772 was a part of the Dwin province of the Pskov province of the Russian Empire. From 1773 to 1776, the district city of the Pskov province, since 1776, the Polotsk province. Since 1778, the Polotsk namestnichestvo. In 1796-1802, the Belarusian province. Since 1802, the district city of the Vitebsk province. In 1810-1832, in the city the Dyneburgsky fortress. Works on her modernization were repeatedly carried out later. Is under construction. By the beginning of Patriotic War of 1812, fortress wasn't finished, and the garrison of fortress, though managed to beat off the first storm, was forced to leave. Finally her then a considerable part of strengthenings was raised by the French. In the middle of the 19th century, the city became the large railway junction. Through Dyneburg, the Riga-Dyneburgske and Petersburg-Warsaw railroads. The movement is opened in 1861. Ran then the Dyneburg-Vitebsky Railroad. 1866. And railway line Dyneburg-Radzivilishki. 1873. From the second half of the 19th century, Dyneburg was one of the major cities in the western part of the Russian Empire. 14 on January 26. 1893, the city of Dyneburg is renamed by the decree of the Emperor Alexander III into Dvinsk. In 1897, the population of the city made 69675 people, including Jews -32064 people, Russians -19153 people, Poles -11420 people, Germans -3126 people, Belarusians -1525 people, Latvians -1274 people. During World War I, Ishi, part of the industrial enterprises of the city, was evacuated to internal provinces of the Russian Empire. The front approached the city in the fall of 1915 when during Svensyansky break the German troops had an opportunity closely to approach the Dwina River and Dvinsk. Capture of Dvinsk as important strategic point would open the road to Petrograd. Around the city position fights were going. to fall of 1917, after the February Revolution, there was gradual decomposition of the Russian army, in troops influence of Bolsheviks sharply amplified. After the October Revolution and truce at the front. Decree on peace. In November 1917 through Dvinsk to Brest-Litovsk for conducting peace talks with Germany, the delegation of the Soviet Russia proceeded. On December 31, 1917 the Dwin County of the Vitebsk province is transferred by the Resolution 6 refers to structure of the Republic of Iskolata. And on February 18, 1918 the German troops entered the city. After the November Revolution in Germany on December 9, 1918 the German troops without fight left Dvinsk, and the city was occupied by parts of the Red Army. Dvinsk was a part of the Soviet Latvia proclaimed on December 17, 1918. Is a part of the First Republic of Latvia and in the years of World War II. During fights for Dvinsk during the Soviet-Polish War on January 3, 1920 the city was occupied by the Polish troops under command of the General E. Smigla. Under the Riga Peace Treaty signed on August 11, 1920 between the Republic of Latvia and the Soviet Russia, the city of Dvinsk and the Dwin County departed in structure of independent Latvia. The same year the city was renamed into Daugavpils. The lock on Daugava. In 1935 the first steel bridge in the Baltics, Edinstva Bridge connecting Daugavpils to the Main is open. In September 1939, after the beginning of World War II, near Daugavpils passed some parts of the Polish army to the territory of Latvia. In the fall of the same year in the Daugavpils fortress the camp for the interned Poles was arranged. At the beginning of December 1939 through the city to Germany the personnel evacuated because of the begun Soviet-Finnish War of Embassy of Finland in Moscow by rail proceeded. On June 17, 1940 from the main Daugavpils was entered by parts of the Red Army. Since summer of 1940 Daugavpils as a part of the Latvian Sur. On June 26, 1941, at the very beginning of the Great Patriotic War, the city was occupied by the German troops. In the Pogolyansky forest there were Massachusetts executions. Behind a northern shaft of the Daugavpils fortress there was a camp for the Soviet prisoners of war of Stalag-340. On July 27, 1944 parts of the Red Army exempted the city from the German troops, then within October 1944 Daugavpils temporarily was the capital of the Latvian Sur. During World War II in the territory of the city more than 165,000 people were destroyed, and the city was destroyed more than for 70%. On November 5, 1946 in the city the first tram is started up. From April 8, 1952 to April 25, 1953 Daugavpils, the center of the Daugavpils region of the Latvian Sur. On May 30, 1953 the city the Main is attached by the decree of Presidium of the Supreme Council of the Latvian Sur to the city of Daugavpils. In 1957 the Daugavpils TV tower earned its initial height -180 meters. In 1988 it was increased, now its height is 204 meters. In 1959 according to a population census of the USA 65.5 thousand people lived in the city. New residential areas, the Daugavpils plant of driving chains, the Daugavpils plant of chemical fiber, the car repair plant, furniture plant, the Latramstanek plant, meat processing plant, cannery were built. According to a population census of the USSR in 1970, 100.6 thousand people lived in the city. In 1979, construction of the Daugavpils hydroelectric power station near Rugeli is begun. Building was stopped in 1987. In 1989, a new flooring of Edinstva bridge is mounted. In 1989, the population census of the USSR recorded 126.7 thousand inhabitants in the city. For January 1, 1992, 127,619 people lived in the city, then the population began to be reduced steadily. The population is specified as of January 1995, 120,897 people. 2000, 115,574 people. 2005, 107,269 people. 2010, 95962 people. 2015, 86435 people. According to the Central Statistical Office of Latvia, the population of the city for the beginning of 2021 was 80627 people. At the same time, the share of inhabitants is more senior than 65 years in structure of the population of the city reached 23.6%, 19069 people. And the share of inhabitants is younger than 14 years was at the level of 14.7%, 11878 people. According to a census of 2011, in the city there were 93312 inhabitants. The main language of communication, the Russian, which was on a census of 2000, the native language for 80.4% of residents. Mortality is 67 people on 1,000 inhabitants, birth rate -39 people on 1,000 inhabitants, the number of marriages -29 on 1,000 inhabitants, arrival on the permanent residence -62 persons on 1,000 inhabitants, departure abroad on the permanent residence -19 people on 1,000 inhabitants. In the Russian Empire, Dvinsk was included into line of the Jewish settled life, and before World War II was inhabited mainly by Jews. They made in 1815, 57%, on a census of 1897, 46%, in 1921, 40%, in 1935, 25% of residents. During the German occupation in the city there was the Jewish ghetto. Most of residents of present Daugavpils Russians. A considerable part of the population of the city is made also by Latvians, Poles and Belarusians. The national structure of the population of the city of Dvinsk. On the basis of statistical data of the first general population census of the Russian Empire of 1897. Daugavpils is the modern developing city of Latvia, being one of the most important cultural centers of the country today. Daugavpils, the important transport hub between Russia and the European Union. In the city there are railway and bus stations. Near the city in Lotsikok, the former Soviet military airfield, which project for development since 2005 is in a stage of search of potential investors, is located. In Daugavpils there are both state and private universities, are available theater in which performances in the Russian and Latvian languages, the local history and art museums are held. The main attraction of the city is well-remained Daugavpils fortress of the beginning of the 19th century, constructed under the direction of the engineer Major General E.F. Yaklia. For carrying out free time in Daugavpils, the ice arena, bowling center and youth entertainment center of Orange Bowling in shopping center, Ditton Nams, and also the Daugavpils Museum, exhibition spaces, a set of restaurants, cafe and bars works. In the summer, the Stropsky recreation facility of Stropy Vilnius, which is at the Stropsky Lake, works. In 2008, construction of the Daugavpils multifunctional sports complex, which was put in operation in 2009, began. There is in the winter an opportunity to visit a ski complex of Restegli Kols, which is near Daugavpils. Since September 11, 2009, the 6-screen movie theater, Silver Screen, on 1200 places located in shopping center, Ditton Nams, is open for visit. Restoration of an architectural dominant of the city, the largest fortification construction in the Baltic, the Daugavpils fortress, is conducted. In September 2010, restoration of one of the most considerable buildings of the city, Houses of Unity, was finished. In Daugavpils, construction of the Baltics's first solar power station was planned, but this project was frozen. On June 4-6, 2010, Daugavpils celebrated the 735th anniversary. Anniversary was marked by a song holiday in which more than 300 participants from all Latvia took part. Among guests of honor of a holiday, there was a president of the country, Valdis Zatlers, the prime minister Valdis Dombrovskis, and the composer Raimonds Pauls. The 200th anniversary since the beginning of construction of the Daugavpils fortress was the same year celebrated. In the city, 2 correctional facilities located on different coast of Daugava function. The Daugavpils prison, known under the name White Swan, is constructed in 1863 on the outskirts of the city of that time. Now she is near the modern downtown. In Daugavpils, allocate 25 planning residential districts. At the time of the Polish Dominion, 1561-1772, in the city, heads were appointed. City heads: mayors, chairman of executive committee of city council, justice and city council. 1865, 1870, 1874, 1876, Gagelster, Nikolai Ivanovich, the mayor of Dinaburg. June 1876, May 1890, Dubrovin, Pavel Fyodorovich, the mayor of Dinaburg. 1891-1892, Subotin, Vasily Grigorievich, the mayor of Dinaburg. 1892-1894, Antonov, Dmitry Antonovich, the mayor of Dinaburg. Vinsk. 1894-1898, Molchanov, Ivan Kondratyevich, the mayor of Vinsk. 1898-1899, Kagan, Augustus Ivanovich. Friedrich Augustus von Hagen, the deputy the mayor of Vinsk. 1899-1915, Pfeffer, Arvid Yakovlevich. Karl Jacob Arwig Pfeffer, the mayor of Vinsk. 1915-1917, Molchanov, Yakov Kondratyevich, the mayor of Vinsk. 1917, Cheshikosakatsky, Vaclav Vladislavovich, the deputy the mayor of Vinsk. 1917, Imsky, the mayor of Vinsk. 1917, Cheshikosakatsky, Stefan Václavovich, the chairman of executive committee of the Dwin Council of Working Deputies, the chairman of the Dwin Revcom. 1918-1919. 1918, Rabinovich M., the mayor of Vinsk. 1918- Karl Viljelmovich, the mayor of Vinsk. 1918, Koritz, Andrei Ignatievich, the second mayor of Vinsk. 1918, Marshinson, Yakovlevovich, the chairman of City Board of Vinsk. 1918-1919 Czechoslovakia, Stefan Václavovich, the Chairman of Executive Committee of the Dwin Council of Working Deputies, the Chairman of the Dwin Revcom. 1919 Bolodis. Bailit. Karl Karlovic, the Chairman of District Executive Committee of the Dwin Council of Working Deputies, the Chairman of the Dwin Revcom. 1919 Alan Pyakovich, the Chairman of the Dwin Revcom. 1920-1923 Zinkel Azens, the Mayor of Daugavpils. 1923-1937 Volens Yanis, the Mayor of Daugavpils. 1938-1940 Schwerkst Andries, the Mayor, then the Foreman of Daugavpils. 1940 Ansons Yanis, the City Foreman of Daugavpils. 1940-1941 Scheppers Bernards, the City Foreman of Daugavpils, the Chairman of Interim Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1941-1942 Peterson Edgewords, the City Foreman of Daugavpils. 1942-1944 Naider Yanis, the City Foreman of Daugavpils. 1944-1946 Briedis Yanis. Ivan, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1946-1950 Sinchenko. Alexei, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1950-1952 Pekolns Yanis, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1952 Dinas Karlis, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1952-1962 Pekolns Yanis, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1962-1968 Tremanis Siegfrieds, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1968-1977 the Adhan Vladislav Dominikovich, the Chairman of Executive Committee of Deputies of Workers of Daugavpils. 1977-1981 Gross Edward, the Chairman of Executive Committee of People's Deputies of Daugavpils. 1981-1985 Van Eggs Leopold, the Chairman of Executive Committee of People's Deputies of Daugavpils. 1985-1987 Sharkov Vladimir, the Chairman of Executive Committee of People's Deputies of Daugavpils. 1987-1991 Fedovsky Alexei Antonovich, the Chairman of Executive Committee of People's Deputies of Daugavpils. 1991 Sharkov Vladimir, the Chairman of Executive Committee of People's Deputies of Daugavpils. 1991-1994 Loskis Valdis, the Chairman of a Temporary Justice of Daugavpils. 1994-2001 Fedovsky Alexei Antonovich, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. The 21st Century. 2001-2003 Agim Richard, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. April-August 2003 Shayanch Iver, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. 2003-2009 Strode Rita Albertona, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. July on September 24, 2009 Agim Richard, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On September 24, 28, 2009 Yankovskaya, Libya, the Acting Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. Before election of the new mayor. On September 28, 2009 on March 24, 2011 Lakplisis Yanis, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On March 24, 2011 Azarovich Vitaly, the Acting Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. From 16 o'clock till 19:30. On March 24, 2011, on July 1, 2013 Kulikova Zhana, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On July 1, 2013, on June 26, 2017 Lakplisis Yanis, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On June 26, 2017, on September 2, 2017 Elksninch Andriy, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On September 2, 2017, on November 22, 2018 Agim Richard Leonardsk, the Chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On November 22, 2018. On January 17, 2019, Preletav Igor, the acting chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On January 17, 2019. On June 11, 2020, Alksninch Andriy, the chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On June 11, 2020. On June 29, 2020, Latvia Yanis, the acting chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On June 29, 2020. On July 1, 2021, Preletav Igor, the chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. On July 1, 2021, the present Alksninch Andriy, the chairman of City Council of Daugavpils. Transport. November 18 Street connects east part of the city to the city center. Highway extent -8.5 km. In the city there is a bridge through the Western Двина which was built in 1935. He connects the downtown and the main. Now there is a construction of the new overpass through the railroad which will connect the center and the new building. The bridge will be opened in October 2019. Before World War II in the city there was already bus traffic. It was carried out by private carriers. There were routes in Slings and Pogulyanka. Now 27 routes of the city bus and 5, the share taxi work in the city. In 1954 the bus station building at the intersection of streets of Viester and Lac is opened. In 2004 the old building was demolished and on his place in 2004-2005 the new bus station is built. The Daugavpils tram, one of 3 operating tram systems in Latvia. There is also a tram message in Riga and Liepāja. In the city there are 3 tram lines connecting various residential districts of the city. Route No. 1. The settlement of chemists, the downtown. It is opened in 1946. Originally I connected Kozavod to the central station. In the early 60s, in connection with construction of the plant of a man-made fiber and the new residential district, the decision to prolong tramways to the Stropski Wood is made. In 1962 the route is prolonged for 2.2 km and came to an end in depot. In the mid-70s Route No. 1 became completely too acceptable. Route No. 2. The settlement of chemists Old Vorstadt. It is opened in 1947 as the second turn of the tram in the city. From the main route. Route No. The branch 2.7 km long to Old Vorstadt is laid. There are plans to prolong a route for 1.9 km up to New Vorstadt. Route No. 3. Old Slings Fortress. It is opened in 1949. The line 1.3 km long connected the fortress and the central market. Later it was connected to the main route. In 1959 the branch to the Stropski platform is laid. In 1960 the line is prolonged up to the Stropski Lake. Beginning from Kozavod, there is a single line with 2 traveling. Cemetery, Istrada. Till 1987 there were 4 tram routes. In August-September 1987, after the trial movement, the station, slings and no. 4. Siege, fortress, united routes no. 3. In constant route no. 3. Fortress, slings. In the tram park -47 cars, including RE's -6 cars of the Riga car building plant, KTMET -5 and KTMET -8 of the Ust-Katavsky car building plant, and also Tatra cars of the Czech production. In 2014, 8 UG-71, 623 and 4 cars of the UG-71, 631 car of the Ust-Katavsky car building plant purchased. Besides, in depot there are 3 office cars. Don't come to the line. River transport. In the city there was a river bus providing a crossing of residents through Daugava. In 1920-1930 by the Oriel ship began to be transported between the Main and Daugavpils. Fares were at Chet -1. The beginning of Krasnoarmeyskaya Street. And on the contrary at the Rekflat on the Main. River passenger traffic functioned prior to the beginning of the 1990th years. Railway transport. Within the city there are passenger stations Daugavpils -1, Daugavpils -2 commodity, Daugavpils sorting, the Main. There is a detour through Svensky Bridge connecting the different directions of the railroad. Before passengers I served also Petersburg-Varshavsky railway station. In 2010 the 150th anniversary of opening of railway communication was celebrated. This event took place 8 on November 20, 1860. Names of the railroads, sites, length and versts, date of opening of the movement on old/new style, year given below. Petersburg-Warsaw Railroad. The site the island Dinneberg. 191 versts. November 8/20, 1860. The road was constructed by sites in 1851-1862. It is handed completely over on December 15/27, 1862. Riga-Dinnebergsky Railroad. The site Riga-Dinneberg. 204 versts. September 12/24, 1861. I was under construction in 1858-1861. Petersburg-Warsaw Railroad. The site Dinneberg-Kovno. 257 versts. May 9/21, 1862. Dinneberg-Vitebsky Railroad. I opened 2 sites. 1. Dinneberg-Polotsk. 150 versts. On May 24/6 June, 1866. 2. Polotsk-Vitebsk. 94 versts. It is handed over as a part of all road. 244 versts. October 5/17, 1866. I was under construction in 1861-1866. Lebovo-Armensky Railroad. The site Kalkany/the Main Radzivilishki. 186 versts. November 1/13, 1873. Kalkunas station is called on Kalkunas Manor, which was nearby. Kalkunas station was near the settlement. Settlement. the main which in 1912 received the status of the city. Since 1921 Kalkunas station is renamed into the main station. In 1963-1968 the combined auto railway Svenski Bridge, by the name of the settlement of Svent, through the Daugava River, western Dvina, on the district railroad bypassing Daugavpils is built. At the moment railway communication connects Daugavpils with Riga, 4 couples of flights to diesel trains in day, and Minsk. The train Riga-Minsk, on odd numbers from Minsk, on even of Riga. Air traffic. Work on transformation of the former military airfield into Lotsikarken in the Daugavpils International Airport of regional value was at one time conducted. The main runway 2,500 meters long, 46 meters wide. In the Soviet Union this airfield was the first class. Then he could accept all planes manufactured in the USSR. In the late 90s passenger planes from this airfield not for long flew to Riga, Liepāja and Copenhagen, then the airfield stopped the existence, and the building of the airport was used as pilot cafe. Now all objects, except even the operating meteorological station, in a non-working state. The majority are destroyed. As of summer of 2010 the main part of a runway was sorted. In 1958-1986 in the urban area of Rugeli there was a civil airport. Flights to Riga, Liepāja, Minsk, Moscow were performed, with intermediate landing. Deep in the 1980th years there were flights Daugavpils, Riga, Minsk, Narek, Daugavpils, Liepāja, Daugavpils, Moscow, Vykovo, and back, Liepāja, Daugavpils, Simferopol. The runway of the airport was soil. The ticket office of Aeroflot was in People's House, on Gogol Street. Nowadays Souls. 23A. There began the airport the activity in May 1958 when to Riga by Li-2 plane the first 24 passengers were transported. Then several decades the airport developed, planes changed, new routes appeared. Before there was only a flight field on which only post and sanitary Po-2 sat down. The planes Li-2, Il-14, and -24 and also the Mi-2 helicopters were used. The In-2 planes flew to Minsk. In the 1980th years the airport was closed, the flight field was transferred later under private housing building, 4 new streets were formed. In Daugavpils there are several bridges through Daugava and the small rivers. Edinstva Bridge. The bridge through the Lotsesu River. Železnodorozny Bridge. The bridge through the Melnichka River. Science and education. In Daugavpils 13 averages of general education educational institutions, 6 main schools, 3 special educational institutions, 29 preschool educational institutions, 7 professional schools, 5 out-of-school institutions work. In the city there are 9 higher educational institutions. Daugavpils University. Daugavpils branch of the Baltic International Academy. Daugavpils branch of the Higher School of Psychology. Daugavpils branch of the Higher School of Social Technologies. Daugavpils branch of Institute of Transport and Communication. Daugavpils branch of the Latvian University. Daugavpils branch of the Riga Institute of Air Navigation. Daugavpils branch of the Riga Technical University. Daugavpils branch of the Riga International Higher School of Economy and Business Administration. In 1948-1993 in the city the Daugavpils highest military aviation engineering college was located. Culture. The historic center of Daugavpils. Building of quarters of the downtown of the beginning of the 20th centuries. Is the monument of town planning of the state value brought in the Arch of the Protected Objects and Monuments of the Republic of Latvia in 1998. In Latvia all branches of Christian culture closely intertwined. The old medal castle was built by the German knights in the 13th century above on the Dvina current, and finally destroyed by Swedes in 1655. The present historic center of the city and borders of so-called Big Vorstadt, for the first time mentioned in written sources in the 16th century, is connected with events of the Livonian War. Then the Russian-Swedish War, a city siege by Swedes, capture of Dinneberg in 1656 by troops of the Russian Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. On the eve of Day of Remembrance of Saints Boris and Gleb. An 11 years existence of the city of Boryslav followed. Then return of Poles, formation of the center of the voivodeship and construction of the residence of an award of Jesuits followed. After the first partition of Poland in 1772 Latvia was a part of the Russian Empire. It was followed by rapid development of the city, and his feature consists in volume. Almost all city was newly reconstructed throughout the 19th century. Dinnebergski Fortress. 1810-1878. A dam for protection of the city against floods was constructed. Through the city the new route of street Petersburg Road, Warsaw is laid. The bridge through Dvina was built, the telegraph is open, the main lines of the railroads are laid. In 1826 the local plan of the city according to the original town planning concept was approved. The main square adjoined the highway, passed into the esplanade, became isolated shaft of fortress and a vertical of Jesuit cathedral. Believe that further development of the area assumed symmetric placement on two of her ends of two cathedrals, Catholic and Orthodox. However, later construction of the market overset this plan. The Catholic cathedral was constructed, and for the Orthodox Christian it was necessary to look for the new place. In 1820, the 1830th years on projects of the street Petersburg architect of A.E. Saterta in the depth of the main square of the city, in style of a late Empire style, two-storied buildings of district offices and a gymnasium were built. In the middle of the square trade life the district board. Wooden shops and warehouses of several markets occupied this space, trade pavilions gradually blocking monumental prospect overlooking fortress. In 1856-1864 in the center of the area Alexander Nevsky Cathedral was constructed. The prospect of Soul Street was focused on a dome of Orthodox Cathedral. Later, at the time of the pre-war Republic of Latvia, in 1936-1937 on the place of the market the multi-purpose complex of the House of Unity which closed the area and changed her monumental scale was constructed. The space behind cathedral was earlier turned into the square, arranged well, here arranged the fountain. The historic center of the city is known for the stylistic variety and a special form facades of houses, including from a red brick, in style of the so-called Latvia Baroque. In building of Daugavpils, unusually large number of the buildings executed from a red brick meets. In Daugavpils, this kind of eclecticism is most widely presented in the buildings designed by the architect of the German origin Wilhelm Neumann, who from 1878 to 1895 was the chief architect of the city. A striking example of red brick architecture are buildings in the Polu quartal of Streets Rygas Institute Sols on Sol Street. 1/3, Rygas 4, Institute 4, 3 and the Museum 6. The form building receptions, characteristic of eclecticism, used on facades of these buildings differ in quality and accuracy of study of details. Symbol of the city of Daugavpils. The outstanding fortification construction occupying the space more than 150 hectares. The only fortress of the first half of the 19th century in Eastern Europe which remained almost without changes. The broken line of strengthenings is formed by a rampart with 8 bastions, 6 ravelins, 6 counter and other protective constructions. Lunettes, redoubts and ditch. On the left coast of Daugava there is a predmostny strengthening, in the territory of which the prison is located. Each construction of fortress is developed with application of experience of the best architectural schools of the Russian Empire and Europe. Planning of an internal part of fortress was executed on a traditional sample of military camps. In the center, the ceremonial area around which quarters of office and residential buildings were located. All facades of buildings are sustained empire, except for the Nikolov Gate and a water tower built in pseudo-Gothic style. Wooden architecture. Daugavpils is unique the remained wooden architecture of the 19th century. Almost completely wooden buildings built up the residential districts Main and Old Vorstadt and also Old Pogulyanka and Old Slings, where rare samples of wooden dakas of the 19th century remained. In addition, in the city it is possible to meet a rare sample of the national and folklore line of the architect Ivan Ropet, nailing the Alexander Nevsky church constructed without uniform and being a monument of wooden architecture. In the city there is a number of the buildings sustained in the Jugendstil. Art Nouveau, a modernist style. First of all, this building of the Daugavpils Museum of Local Lore on Ryga Street 8 and also 2 buildings on Sol Street. House 4155. In the historic center of the city and the building on February Street 24. Geak. The part of buildings of this architectural style was lost during World War II. As, for example, the house on Zelyonaya Street. In the city there are rare examples of architecture in style of the Soviet modernism. Their number includes the building of the former movie theater Renaissance. Till 1991 Octobris, the Nostra. Constructed in the 1970th years on the project of the architect Albert Kraklus. For this project he got the State Award in the field of architecture. And the Daugavpils Palace of Culture and Sport. The palace is known, including, and the stained glass window, Fire and Night. It is created in 1971. The author of A Stained Glass Window, the aquarellist and a vitricist of Egon Sesnieks. 1915-1978. Devoted work of memory of Janus Reinus in his native Latgale. This stained glass window was conceived by the architect Andris Pervinch as a certain ideological center of the palace. The place where all actions had to begin. Besides the buildings executed in style of modernism in the city, the set of examples of standard building of sleeping areas of 1970 and 1988, standard educational institutions, and also a large number of striking examples of Stalin architecture of 1950 and 1960. The Daugavpils School No. 9 No. 8 No. 3 No. 7. Old building of the Daugavpils University is the building of failed regional committee of party. The Daugavpils railway station, the former movie theatre, Daugava, and the building of the bus station lost in the ordeers. A large number of samples of a Stalin Empire style which differ in development of traditions of the Russian classicism, use of architectural warrants, bas-reliefs with heraldic compositions and images of workers occurs among these buildings. Daugavpils is under construction and changes all the time, therefore in it is possible to meet a large number of modern buildings. However, many of constructions are deprived of architectural value and have only utilitarian appointment. Vietnam's Mall, Trade Solo Park, bus station, etc. There are also more successful examples. The multipurpose sports center and car center of Renault, both buildings are on the esplanade. Sculptures and monuments. The monument devoted to Mark Rothko. Daugava Embankment in Daugavpils, 2003. The author, Romuald Grabowski. Monument to defenders of the city. On a background, the Daugava River, a regional justice and park hotel at Gola Hotel. Monument to the head of the Polish revolt of 1863, Count Leon Broluplater. The author, Romuald Grabowski. Eternal Flame, a memorial to soldiers liberators in Dobrowin's Park. Cross in memory of the fallen Polish soldiers. New building, sculptor Romuald Grabowski, architect Wanda Bolina. Cross in memory of the fallen Polish soldiers. Sculptor Romuald Grabowski, architect Wanda Bolina. The monument devoted to the head of the Polish revolt, Count Leon Plater. The sculptor Romuald Grabowski is open on June 9, 2013 in the Daugavpils Fortress. Monument to the Siberian Poles deported to Siberia. The Roman Catholic Cemetery. The sculptor Romuald Grabowski is opened by the Center of the Polish Culture on September 17, 2009. Sculpture of a turtle on Riga Street. Like Granite, 2009, sculptor Ivo Folkmanis. Sculpture of the Bat. It is open on June 15, 2012 at the intersection of streets Rigas and Mykoelsa. Sculpture of a cat on Riga Street at House No. 51. Dark Granite. It is open on June 10, 2011, the sculptor Dmitry Yakimchuk. Volkov. Monument to the city's mayor Pavel Dubrovin. Dobrowin's Park. Bronze, 2007, sculptor Alexander Tartanav. Monument to the Latgale ceramics. Only in the world. It is open on May 19, 2012 on Riga Street. The memorial plate and bas-relief devoted to the actor and the director Solomon Michaels on the building in which he was born. Michaels Street. Former coaching. 4. The memorial plate with a bas-relief devoted to the Polish composer, the conductor and the musician Grzegorz Feitelberg on the building to the address Michael Street. 58. At an entrance to the Central Children's Library, in which he was born and I spent childhood. Monument to Mark Rothko. Daugavpils Embankment in Daugavpils, 2003. The author, Romuald Grabowski. The bust devoted to the 100th anniversary of the Latvian national poet Jānis Rainis. Bronze, 1967, sculptor Indulis of Folkmanis. The bust devoted to Andrew Pumper. Sculptor 1. Kreminia, 1966. Andrew Pumper Square. Memorial plate to the 80th anniversary of the Belarusian State Gymnasium. Warsaw Street. 16. Monument to the Epos Latvijas. It was originally established on the new building. It is postponed to the first elementary school after her reconstruction. High relief on the building of a city registry office. 1980, sculptor Indulis of Folkmanis. Monument to defenders of the city. Maine. 1975, sculptor Indulis of Folkmanis, architect 5. A. Halninch. High relief on the building of music school. 1972, sculptor Indulis of Folkmanis. Obelisk in Slava Square. The new building. The 14-meter relief copper ring and a bayonet are executed by the sculptor Indulis Folkmanis, 1969. Girl with a lily. Bronze, the 1950th years, the fountain in Andrew Pumper Square. Monument of T. 1976, the author, the graphic designer of the Daugavpils dairy plant Felster. Sculptural composition at School Saskanias. Forest animals and child. Group of sculptures in the square on Riga Street. In the garden of sculptures near St. Peter's Church. Commemorative plaque about Bayou. Pilsudski and Ya. The Lotuses meeting in January, 1920, Gymnasia Street. E11. Deer sculpture. Earlier it was established opposite to the Brotherly Cemetery to the Soviet soldiers. It is at the moment established in Pogulyanka on Venta Street. Girl sculpture. I protected the Lake Skubish from the street on November 18. Pig iron lions. Re-established at entrances to the Daugavpils Local History and Art Museum from streets Rigas and the museum. The sculptor is unknown. Sundial opposite to the old building of the Daugavpils University. 1910, black marble, the author, the teacher of physics of the Twin Real School Arkady Yaskov. Commemorative plaque to the architect 5. Wittendt, the author of the project Vienības Nams. Gymnasia Street. On the building of the House of Unity. It is established in 2004 instead of stolen in 1994 from a wall from an entrance to theater. Memorial plate about tests of penicillin in hospitals of the city in the fall of 1944, spring of 1945. 1984, Saul Street 1/3. Memorial plate to the Latgale Publishing House of Vladislav Loks. 1943-1944. On a wall of house no. 5 on Alea Street. Steel of Dvinca at the Station Square. Stamping on copper, 1967, the sculptor Indulis of Folk Manis. Memorial to the victims of fascism, Meshtsiams. Steel, sculptures Indulis of Folk Manis. The obelisk devoted to the 360th Rifle Division of the Red Army, which soldiers the first entered the city on July 27, 1944. 1967. There is opposite to the Brotherly Cemetery, November 18th Street, Old Slings. Monument to the Emperor Nicholas II in memory of his stay in Dvinsk on October 29, 1904. It is open in July 1913 in Sharapovo. At the moment the monument pedestal remained. The gun with a monogram of the emperor and the state emblem of the Russian Empire is damaged in the 1930th years and needs restoration. On June 26, 2012, the pedestal of a monument is transported from Rugeli in the Daugavpils fortress, established on a lawn at the waterlifting building. On November 17, 2011, the plaque devoted to Andriy Shverkst, the head of Department of the Daugavpils County. 1928-1938. And Daugavpils. 1938-1940, is unveiled. The author Iva of Folk Manis is on a wall at Home of Unity. On May 3, 2012, the memorial plate on a wall of the former consulate of Poland in Daugavpils, Muzea Street. 6 is open. In this house during 1930-1939 there was a consulate of the Republic of Poland. An inscription in the Latvian and Polish languages. Symbolical monument to Leonid Dobichin. In June 2012 fundraising on his construction began. Citizens supported an action. It is open on September 2, 2012 at the Orthodox Cemetery. Monument to Jews, prisoners of the Daugavpils Ghetto. 1941-1942. Near Predmostny strengthening of Dinaburgsky Fortress. It is open on September 6, 2015. Commemorative plaque to Friedrich Brigides. It is open on November 6, 2015 on the building to the address Muzea Street. 6. Lost. Monument to 5.1. Lenin at Vianiba Square. Earlier Lenin Square. Granite 1970, sculptor A.N. Chernitsky, architect 5. Halnin. Monuments to 5.1. Lenin and I. 5. Stalin opposite to a main entrance in City Theatre. The House of Unity. Memorial to the victims of fascism in Metsimsa. Daugavpils. Nowadays on the place of a sculpture the stele is established. Initial version. Lemitufa 1960, sculptor H. Princess, architect C. Appellite. Reconstruction. 1976-1979, Indulis of Folk Manis. T-34 tank. Highway P, entry into the city from Pogulyanki. The MiG-19 plane at Mikhailovsky Gate. The Daugavpils Fortress. It was removed in 1994, the pedestal remained. Museums. Daugavpils Local History and Art Museum. The Daugavpils Local History and Art Museum, one of the oldest and largest museums of Latvia. It is founded in 1938, since 1959 is in the most beautiful building of the city, which is a monument of cultural history and architecture. The Daugavpils Local History and Art Museum. The EDCM. Research and Educational Establishment, the only museum of city self-government. His exposition covers the history of the city of Daugavpils and Daugavpils region. The works created in 1972-1998, characterizing unique handwriting and the different directions of creativity of this master, are exhibited at the Hall of the Daugavpils artist Leonid Bolin. 1945-2002. Museum, Jews in Daugavpils and Latvia. The museum is located on the second floor of a synagogue Kaddish. The exposition of the museum tells about life and traditions of Jews in Daugavpils and Latvia since the beginning of the 20th century and up to now. It consists of 25 stands devoted well known to rabbis, synagogues, schools, societies and the ordinary people living in the region. A part of stands about Daugavpils reflects the tragedy of the Holocaust. A number of stands acquaints with pre-war life of Jews in the small towns of Latvia. In the museum, unique photos, prayer books, calendars, certificates of honor, diplomas and other documents are collected. Tourists can also see a roll of the Old Testament and religious accessories. Address of the museum. Site Auction Street 38. Museum of Military Equipment. In the settlement of Svent, near the city, the Museum of Military Equipment, which is in a hangar near the guest house of Svents Musa, is located. Here it is possible to see the heavy IS-2 tank, the T-34 tank, armored Bream-1 and Bream-2 prospecting and patrol vehicles, the Willis Jeep, the gas car -64, artillery pieces. Museum of the Daugavpils Water Utility. Is in rooms of the Gaok water pump station constructed in 1889. It supplied 111 years Daugavpils with water from Dvina. After full transition to underground sources of water, the station is preserved. Then here the exposition on stories of a city water supply system was arranged. The museum is open in 2002. Address of the museum. Judensbad Street, 3 in the Nut. Museum Aries. At the Daugavpils Locomotive Warranty Plant, which history begins in 1866. Originally it were railway workshops. At the beginning of August, 1978, the Factory Museum of the Enterprise opened. He was placed in Aries Recreation Center. In the 1990s the museum was closed, and in the odd years rediscovered in the building of an old factory checkpoint. There are two holes, at an entrance a boulder with date 1866. Address of the museum. Naurea Street, 1 on the new building. Museum of the Daugavpils Office of the Baltic Railroad. In Railway Club on Vincev Street. 44 on the third floor of the building. Since 1990 the Public Museum of the Daugavpils Office of the Baltic Railroad was placed. It is created to the 50th anniversary of office. 1940–1990. There was a rich exposition of the documents, awards and objects connected with railway transport. During creation of the Latvian Railway Museum in Riga was his branch. The last head, Baltasis. Later everything was taken out to Riga. Doesn't exist now. Museum of Athletics of Latvia. At the fitness center of Brinsky there is a historical museum of athletics of Latvia where the collection of objects, awards, documents on athletics of Latvia is collected. Address of the museum: Riga Street, 22A. Museum of Chess and Checkers of Latvia. In Chess and Checkerboard Club of Daugavpils in May 2014 the Museum of Chess and Checkers of Latvia opened. Address of the museum: Rain Street, 69. Rainis's Museum. Janis Rainis's house in Birkenau is in the Kolkansky Volist, at distance of 8 kilometers from Daugavpils. This place in Latvia is known as Edge of the Childhood of Rainis. His father Christian Pleikshins from 1872 to 1881 was a tenant of a manor Birkenkijan, so in those days called Birkenau. 9 years Birkenau was the residence of future poet Rainis. Here his school days during which he studied in a parsonage of Vilkamiestas. 1874–1875, and also at Grivsky German School, 1875–1879. Begin. Later in these parts Rainis spent vacation during study in the Riga Gymnasium. In Birkenau the identity of future poet, his outlook is formed, the first verses are born. In the collection, 5 outline notebooks of Dagda, the section Unique Picture is completely devoted to Birkenau. On November 9, 1996, after many years of desolation, the house opened doors for visitors again. For years of the activity, Rainis's house in Birkenau became the significant cultural center where there are creative meetings, annual days of poetry, the holiday Ligo, open airs and exhibitions of professional artists will be organized. Museum of Paleontology. On November 26, 2010 at the Daugavpils 10th High School the School Museum of Paleontology was open. At the heart of the museum, a personal collection of Piotr Hudobkinek, who is the famous artist, the master of ceramics. Exhibits of the museum gathered in within 30 years. The most part of exhibits is found on coast of Daugava and Goya, but is also such which were received by exchange in Poland, Russia and other countries. The exposition is prepared with assistance of the Latvian Museum of the Nature. Retrograde. On November 2, 2020 passed the opening ceremony of a private collection of cars and things Retrograde across the address. Valnia Street, 4A. Libraries. In 1857 Yao Padashin opened the first bookstore in Dinneburg, and Ero opened the first library where books and magazines were issued for a certain payment. It became the first library of Dinneburg and operated on an extent more than 80 years. In 1904 at requests of citizens in Vinst the Free Library of Gogol was open. Now 6 libraries work in the city. The Central Latgale Library in the House of Unity, Children's Library, Zilite. Both are in the downtown. Library of the New Building, Pardogovsky Library, Shirinu Library and P. Krast's Library. Theatre. The history of city theatre begins in 1856 when in Dinneberg the amateur troupe of Medvedev was created. The theatre repeatedly was closed and opened again. I worked also in the years of fascist occupation. In 1944 the Russian drama troupe was organized. In 1959 the theatre was reorganized into musical and drama theatre with the Latvian and Russian troupe. Took orchestra and chorus on staff of theatre. Besides drama performances, operas and operettas begin to be staged. In 1963 the theatre was closed. In 1988 revival of theatre begins. 4 actors courses. 2 Latvian and 2 Russians. Which made a basis of 2 troupes were created. Actors of the Latvian troupe pass home in 1995 to work into the Riga theatres, and the Daugavpils theatre stops the existence again. In 1996 the theatre was restored. In the fall of 1999 with assistance of the Daugavpils taught at the Daugavpils University gather a new actors course. Besides the Russian and Latvian languages performances are put as well in the Latgale language. The graduate of the very first course to Inessa Liaisona since 2001 becomes a theatre director. Since 2011 the director and the creative art director is Oleg Shaposhnikov. Several times the theatre won prizes at Blominus's Festival in Valmiera and at the Night of Actors Festival. Sport. In the city existed several soccer teams participating in Eurocups which were repeatedly becoming by champions and prize winners of the Championships of Latvia, owners of a Cup of Latvia. Daugavpils, Locomotive Paes, Builder, Chemist, Wielandy/Dinneberg, Daugava. At the beginning of February 2009 the decision on association of the Daugava and Dinneberg teams and creation of uniform football club, Dinneberg, is made. After disqualification of FE Dinneberg the place in the highest league in 2010 was given to team of the first league, Daugava. The Daugavpils Speedway team became the first champion of Latvia on a futsal. In Daugavpils there is the ice hockey team Latgale, the prize winner of the Championship of Latvia. In the city, strong volleyball traditions, the Chemist team I participated in the championships of the USA. The Swassa youthful teams repeatedly won the championship of the USA, the electric tool team. Dower. Chemist Pumagister participants of Eurocups, numerous champions of Latvia. Annually in the city there take place the international competitions in a speedway. Also in Daugavpils there passed the World Cup stage, the Grand Prix of Latvia. The local locomotive team, the leader of the first Polish league, the winner and the prize winner of sports contests of the people of the USA, the championships of the USA and Russia, the threefold owner of a Cup of the USA. The women's basketball team, Daugavpils 2 Universitatea, acts in the Baltic League. On June 14, 2012 in the city there took place the Snooker European Championship in which 153 persons from 34 countries of the world participated. Religion. The Daugavpils Boris Cathedral, the biggest Orthodox Church of Latvia. Latvian Orthodox Church. Daugavpils Diocese. The ruling bishop, the Bishop of Daugavpils and Rezekny Alexander. Matrinin. There are 7 Orthodox churches. Boris Cathedral. Alexander Nevsky Church. Church of the Dormition of the Theotokos. It is founded in 1877, parish life is revived in 2007. Old Belief. There are 6 Old Belief temples in Mileni. Mileni, the first Daugavpils Old Belief community. Nikola Pokrovsky Staroforштadtski Old Belief Temple. The Latvian Orthodox Autonomous Church in jurisdiction of the Constantinople Patriarchy. Evangelic and Lutheran Church of Latvia. Bishop Daugavpils to Einars Alpa. Martin Luther's Church. Catholic Church. Down the river the Western Vina passes the church border of 2 dioceses of the Roman Catholic Church. Rizekny and Oglonsky and Jelgava. Having the city. To the north from the river the Rizekny and Oglonsky diocese, to the south from the river the Jelgava diocese is located. There are 4 Catholic temples. St. Peter's Church in Chains. Church of Immaculate Conception of Blessed Virgin of Maria. Other directions. Daugavpils Synagogue. Baptist Church. The Buddhist Center of the Diamond Way Direction Works. The Hall of the Kingdom of Jehovah's Witnesses Works. Seventh-day Adventist Church. There was a community of Krishnites. At it there was a vegetarian dining room. Christian Church, New Life. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Church of Mormons. The list of consulates of the foreign states located in the city. Flag of Russia. Consulate General of the Russian Federation. Consuls and Consuls General. Kaznachev Gennady Vasilievich. 1994-1999. Bondarenko Nikolay Petrovich. 1999-2002. Tuzov Valery Nikolaevich. 2002-2006. Viklyaev Nikolay Alexeyevich. August 2006 on August 18, 2011. Rybakov Oleg Valentinovich. On August 18, 2011, August 2017. Vladimirov Andrei Yurevich. August 2017, July 2019. Kolesnikov Evgeny Ivanovich. February 2020, the present. Consulate General of Republic of Belarus. It is located at the address November 18 Street 44. Originally took place in City Council. Office No. 216. Opened on October 7, 1994. Consuls and Consuls General. Zoltovsky Anatoly. 1994-1998. Markovic Vasily Mikhailovich. 1998-2002. Konsky Alexander. May 2002 December 2002, the Acting Consul General of Belarus. Kamashik Nikolay Stepanovich. December 2002. Akramovich Gennady. October 2008. Isaac Viktor Mikhailovich. October 2008, January 2015. Klimev Vladimir Vasilievich. On January 11, 2015, January 2020. Earlier existing diplomatic missions in the city. The Consulate of Germany was placed to the address Valdemar Street. Nowadays Gymnasias. 3. Flag of the USSR Consulate of the USSR in Daugavpils. Existed in 1925-1933 to the address Zelyanya Street, Free, Amantis Street. Now Consuls. Shootings of movies in the city and its vicinities. Mikhail Strogoff, France, 1926. The director Viktor Tursonsky, in a leading role, Ivan Mazin. Shootings of 1925. Vinsk and vicinities. To Siberia behind a treasure, 1934. Son of the People, 1934. Deceived. In roles. Astrida Kirisha. Where the Sea Comes to an End, 2007. The director Artur Dubeks. Central Studio of Children's and Youthful Movies of Gorky. Dress Code for the Idler, 1979. The director Eldar Yarazbey. Riga Film Studio. City on Daugava, 1960. Documentary. The director Layman's Gagels. Legend of Daugava, 1968. Documentary. The scriptwriter and the director film documentary filmmaker Layman's Gagels. Shoot Instead of Me, 1970. The director Janis Drake, the director of photography Richard Pix. In roles: Bertolis Bizik, Astrida Kirisha, Nikolay Merzlikin, Artur Berzins. Shootings on Lujsa Street. And A. Pampura, several frames at the station of Lixin of the Daugavpils district. My Friend the Person Frivolous, 1975. The director Janis Drake. Then film. Curfew, 1980. The director Natalia Troshchenko. I Don't Guarantee Personal Security, 1980. The director Anatoly Vakhotko. Shootings of neighborhood of the villages of Vishki and Shakti, buildings of a district committee and a city-town committee of party in Daugavpils. The Dream Has Come True, a Suitcase, 1985. The director Ernest Yasin. The film was shot in Daugavpils. Belarus film. Hunter's Notes, 1971. Halcyon, 1972. The director Vyacheslav Nikiforov, the scriptwriter the writer Yuri Yakovlev, the operator Vitaly Nikolov. In roles: Gleb Strizanov, Alexander Vilya, Vladimir Samolov, Antonina Maximova, Anna Adamovich. Shootings the City, Svensky Bridge. Bread War is in the Air, 1973. The director Vyacheslav Nikiforov. Shootings in the City at the station in 1973. White Waltz, 1978. The director Viktor Turov. Frontier, 1980. The director Boris Stepanov. In roles: Iva Artman, Aristark Livanov, Marina Duheva, Alexander Denisov, Igor Sterigin. One series: shootings in the city, the Daugavpils Fortress, Svensky Bridge. Trojan Horse, two-part television movie, 1980. The director Valery Ponomaryev, actors Georgy Burkov, Nikolay Eryamenko, Valery Filatov, Roland Bykov. The Scattered Nest, 1981. The director Lutsenko, Boris Ivanovich, actors Olga Serena, Vadim Ledogorov. According to works by Janka Kapala. Shootings in the Daugavpils Fortress. For Us, 1981. Television movie. The director Vyacheslav Nikiforov. According to the story by Vasil Bykov, shootings in the Hall of City Theatre. Odessa Film Studio. To Take Live, 1982. Shootings in the Daugavpils Fortress, at Mikhailovsky and Nikolov Gate, Lutheran Church on Krasnoarmeyskaya Street with Hours. Tallinn Film. Ask the Price of Death the Dead, 1978. The director Kali Kiesk. In roles: Nick Mikiver, Gediminas Gerdvanis, Tuela Kal. Shootings in Daugavpils, the New Building. The documentary about the city, 10 Men. 2003, it is removed by the Riga studio of documentary cinema of Avenue. Centranak Film. Jewish Cemetery, 1989. Directors Yuri Mariamov, Rafael Nakmanovich. Excavation and reburial of the shot prisoners of the Daugavpils ghetto in Pogulyanka in June, 1989. The winner of the Nika Award of 1990 in the Best Educational Film nomination. On May 12, 2011, in the Daugavpils Fortress, shootings of the Lithuanian-German movie about World War II began. October 2011, in the neighborhood of Daugavpils, the director Sergei Loznitsa removed some episodes to the new movie in fog. According to the story of the same name of 5. Lykov. The movie was published and received several awards at film festivals. On April 3, 2013, in Daugavpils there took place premiere display with Sergei Loznitsa's participation. 2015. In the city and vicinities there is shooting the Gutman's Alternative, devoted to events of the Great Patriotic War according to the story, Wolf's Alternative Gutman, by Marsky. On May 4, 2016, in Recreation Center there took place the premiere of the film Gutman's Alternative. 2016 summer. There are shootings in the Daugavpils Fortress and the neighborhood of the city of the movie on the work by F.M. Dostoevsky, Mild, the director S. Loznitsa. Honorable Citizens. Kohn, Boris Atonovich. 1879-1904. Is the warrant officer of the Russian fleet. I served on the Eskadreny Petropavlovsk battleship. I died together with crew of the ship at defense of Port Arthur on March 31, 1904. The Rabbi Simcha Meiri from Vinsk, the chief rabbi of Daugavpils in 1888-1926, the author of the book Shouting Samak. Niller Evany Karlovic on September 25. On October 1867, Dinneberg, Vitebsk province. On May 11, 1939, Moscow, the Russian military leader, the lieutenant general. 1915. The head of the White Movement in the north of Russia in 1919-1920, the commander-in-chief of all ground and naval armed forces in the north of Russia. Northern Army. Acting against the Soviet power. Since 1930, after stealing by the Soviet investigation of the General A.P. Kutepov, the chairman of the Russian General and Military Union. Roidmu. Artyukin, Yuri Petrovich. 1930-1998. Is the Soviet astronaut, the flight engineer of the Union-14 spaceship and the Salyut-3 space station, the colonel engineer, the hero of the Soviet Union. Eremenko, Andrei Ivanovich. 1892-1970. Is the commander of the Second Baltic Front, Marshal of the Soviet Union. Christmas, Oleg Konstantinovich. 1934. Director of the Daugavpils Teacher Training College. In 2000, within the celebration of the 725th anniversary of the city, according to the decision of City Council List 114, awarded with Badge of Honor is published. On June 9, 2005, to 31 person the rank Honorable Daugavpil Chanin was given. Azan Vladislav is an inspector of security guard and patrol service of management of police of Daugavpils. Binerovich Arnold. Sword. 1951. Veteran of sport. Bolchenko Evgenia Ivanovna. Sword. 1928. Veteran of work of Latviskaya Zheleznya Doroga, hero of socialist work. 1966. Bogdanova, Zheroida Ivanovna. 1934-2019. Is the director of the Russian House. Brock Teresia, the conductor. 1925-2018. Velevka Sergei Leonidovich is a musician. Ivargonyanovna, the philosopher, the dancer, the poetess. Drobyako Alexei. 1906-2006. Is the first plant manager of chemical fiber. Vain. Alexei Nikolaevich. 1945-2021. The prior of First Daugavpils. Novostroyenskaya. Of the Old Belief Community. Sueva Sofia is the chairman of the Daugavpils Office of Federation of Pensioners of Latvia. Iker. Zega, director of the Daugavpils University. Kieran Leonid is professor of the Daugavpils University. Kolesnikova Nina. 1935-2018. Is intensivist. Alexander. Kudryashev. The Metropolitan of Riga and all Latvia of the Latvian Orthodox Church. Lipa Anita is a writer. Nadalan Alexander. 1925-2018. Is the Dean of the Roman Catholic Temple of St. Peter. Nalyukin Oleg. Sword. 1969. Athlete biathlonist. Mikhailev Avrami. 1934-2007. Is the former director of the Daugavpils bus fleet. Aspen Fena. Sword. 1939. POTUS. Patoshko Estrida. 1927-2013. The Teacher. Pope of Georgy is a Dean of Saints Boris and Gleb. Ryazantsev Gennady is the head of the Center of Repair of Locomotives. Rybakov Alexander Vladimirovich is a musician, the poet. Sverdlov Benjamin Ovsevich, 1932-2020, is a teacher. Silev Henrik is a sports trainer. Solovyev Alexei Sergeyevich is a poet. Timchenko Lyudmila Nikolavna, 1939-2022, is professor of the Daugavpils University. Fyodorov Ivan, 1939-2012, is the long-term head of NL Studensvads. Fyodorov Fyodor Polyektovich, 1939-2020, is the Dean of Department of the Russian Literature and the Culture of the Daugavpils University. Podukin Valery, 1939-2009, is a teacher of the Daugavpils Musical College, the artistic director and the conductor of the Daugavpils Orchestra of Accordion Players. Chuzans Henriks, 1924-2016, the board member of Society of Victims of Political Repression. Shtayman Yosef, 1923-2011, is professor of the Daugavpils University. Yurieva Claudia Detraevna, 1926-2014, the poet. Yahoo Zalman, 1919-2009, is a local historian. On June 4, 2010, within the celebration of the 735th anniversary of the city, ranks Honorable Daugavpilshanin received 15 people. Warshevsky's Arvid, scientist, rector of the Daugavpils University. Valium Alexander. Vishnevskaya Ingrida, teacher. Denisev Yuri, 1957-2021, builder. Dvoretsky Tatyana, president of Magister. Igolny X. Raymond. Kermelyev Arkady Galaktionovich, 1931-2019, is a teacher. In 2020 opened for him a memorial plate on a wall of the former Fort High School. Lebetsky Vladimir, chief of the Daugavpils operational site of the Latvian Railroad. Lieutenant Anatoly, athlete. Tulinarta Silva Veronica, 1939-2018. Okuneva Zoa, children's surgeon. Populis Yanis, 1938-2016. Scientist. Christmas Oleg Konstantinovich. Rybnikov Vladimir, president of Spidvayny Club, Lokomotiv. Toronik Anatoly, doctor. On June 5, 2015, within the celebration of the 740th anniversary of the city, ranks Honorable Daugavpilshanin received 6 people. Verkovskaya Genevieva, 1935-2021. The former teacher of DD, the scientific secretary of Institute of Researchers of Latgale. Vidovsky Alexei, 1943-2020. Is the former mayor of Daugavpils. Egorov Valery. Popinch Mikhail, the creator of the Daugavpils Zoo. Stankiewicz Richard. Tamoshenko Avany is the former director of High School No. 2, Russian Lyceum. On November 12, 2020 at a meeting of City Council 4 new honorable citizens are called. Lyubov Kopylova is a freestyle wrestling coach. Heinrich Solms is professor of Institute of Social and Humanitarian Knowledge of the Daugavpils University. Janis Bukvich is a producer Doma Edinstva. Elaine Gannon is the executive director and the founder of SIA Axon Cable Latvia. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.